A lot of people really enjoy a great cup of coffee, but if you go to the stores, it can get expensive. So we're here to teach you how to make the perfect cup of coffee at home. And to help us do that, we've got Jackson O'Brien, who is a coffee ambassador with Peace Coffee. Thank you for coming into the studio and teaching us a little bit more about coffee.
Yeah, happy to help. So a lot of people, I think, when they budget for things and they're trying to save money, a lot of people put coffee right on the chopping block. They're like, you need to spend less money on coffee. Fancy coffee is right out. But also, fancy coffee is surprisingly affordable in the world of luxury goods. A really nice bag of coffee is going to cost you way less than a really nice bottle of wine, say. And it's something that you can really be smart about, where you can still have a quality product but still save money. One of the big things about this is the way that we measure coffee. The biggest consumer of coffee in most American households is the sink, is the drain, because people will brew a whole thing of this. They'll brew one of these carafes full of coffee, and they'll brew the whole thing. They'll drink a little bit of it, and then the rest of it goes down the drain. But if you're a little bit thriftier and a little bit more knowledgeable about how to measure coffee, you can really save a lot of money and also just save a lot of resources in general. The problem here is multiple-fold. One is the water. Here is a measuring glass with 2 cups of water in it. 2 standard cups, 16 fluid ounces. Now, if I put that into here, note how that hits the 4-cup line on this, because a cup, according to a coffee brewer, is not an actual cup. And then also, if I pour this into a regular old mug, this is, I think, a fairly standard mug in most American households, right? That almost halfway, more than halfway, brewed down this. So the cup on this is also not the actual cup that you drink out of. And so things get really confusing. So we're going to take cups of coffee, throw that completely out the window. Here's how I really like to show off how to brew coffee, which is this. Take your favorite mug. And I'm just going to have it empty. I have it on a gram scale here. I'll talk more about gram scales in a second. I'm just going to pour water in there. That's a 250 gram mug. 250 grams of water fit in that. How many mugs of coffee do you drink in the morning? It's about this size.
Probably about 1 or 2.
1 or 2? So there you go. You brew 500 milliliters of coffee, as opposed to the 1,700 milliliters that would go into this. You're going to be brewing way less coffee in the morning. You're going to be saving all kinds of money by not brewing that excess of coffee. The other problem is the measurement of the beans themselves. Right over there, you have 2 bags of coffee. The 2 on your left, yeah, that one. Go ahead and hand me that.
Sure.
Then hand me that other one right next to it. These both contain the exact same amount of coffee. This both contains 340 grams, 12 ounces. If I pop it on my scale here, you can see 360 grams, that's also the package. 370 grams.
So 10 more.
10 more, but fairly similar. But also look at how different the size of these bags are.
Yes.
Because different coffees have different densities. So if you use a scoop or you use a dry measure or something like that, you're going to get some really wacky measurements. And even worse, coffee doesn't like to stack very evenly. It's kind of like flour in that way. The same tablespoon will measure 2 different measures of coffee. So measuring your coffee by weight is a really, really smart thing to do, and will ensure a much more consistent cup. This, I think, is the biggest bang for your buck that you can do to improve your coffee game in the world out there. And that's
kind of like baking, where bakers will weigh a lot of their ingredients versus measuring.
Correct. It's just an amazing thing to have around the kitchen. The preferred ratio to brew coffee that we have is 60 grams of coffee per liter of water. And 1 liter of water is also 1 kilogram of water, because the metric system is amazing. Another thing that I think is really key in brewing excellent coffee is the actual brewer itself. A lot of coffee brewers, like the one that this carafe came off of, sadly do not get the water to the optimal temperature, and they do not have the optimal extraction time. They don't evenly wet the coffee as you're brewing it. And those things are really difficult for a machine to do, and they're really, really easy for a human being to do. And so that's why if you're looking to get the best coffee brewer for your dollar, a manual brewer, something that actually you as a human being are brewing coffee with, like this French press or like this pour-over brewer, are really key. They are going to be able to do the things that a lot of auto drippers are not going to be able to do, and they're going to cost way, way, way less than a lot of the fancier auto drippers. And it's also like a pleasant experience to brew some coffee. You want to brew some coffee real fast?
Yeah, we'll do a quick batch right here. That'd be great. So what method are we going to be trying out here?
We're going to be brewing up a pour over with our Hario V60 here. We're going to be using a 1/4 liter of water. That's 250 grams of water. And we're going to be using 15 grams of coffee for that.
Using the lessons we just learned about weight.
Exactly so.
Use less coffee.
So, measuring out my 15 grams of coffee. Oop, a little over. There we go.
And a lot of this is saving, what it save money is to get the proper extraction. So you're getting the most out of your beans. You're not leaving flavor on the table with the grounds.
Exactly so. I've got my coffee filter here. I've got my kettle over here. I'm going to put my filter into my brewer. First thing I'm going to do is just wet that coffee filter. This does a number of things. One is, you can see how the filter kind of adheres to the sides. You can see those ridges of the brewer around the sides of here. So now that filter is really stuck to the sides. It's not going to fold over on itself. That way all the water is going to flow through the bed of coffee rather than around it.
Creating a better tight seal.
And also, it's going to warm the whole system up. So now this is warm, this is warm. That hot water isn't going to lose temperature as I add the water to it. It's going to stay a consistent temperature as I brew. So I'm going to grind.
We've had conversations about the grind is also important too, is getting the right right consistency. Will get a good extraction with your coffee as well.
Absolutely so, yep. I'm gonna go ahead and pop that into my brewer. I have the whole brewer now with the coffee in it tared out on the scale. So now I just kind of watch this. I'm gonna stop pouring water once it reaches 250. But first I'm gonna do a thing called a bloom. It's where you hit the coffee with just enough water to saturate the grounds. You'll see how it kind of swells and bubbles. That is just kind of some natural gas that exists inside coffee grounds. It's now escaping, floating up to the top, popping, and going out into the atmosphere. Creates a lovely aroma too. It's a lovely thing to have happen as you're brewing it. You get to smell that wafting fresh coffee smell. But it's also an impediment to brew. And so you want to hit it with the water and then stop for a minute and then watch for it. Now I'm going to pour again. I'm just going to keep getting that brew bed evenly wet. And what's going to happen is some of those grounds are going to kind of float at the top, some of them are going to cling to the sides of the filter, and some of them are going to sink down to the bottom. My goal is to get everything to sink down to the bottom. So I'm just going to pour my water where those dry looking spots are on the top.
And the best thing about this method is nothing is too terribly expensive. I mean, the scale is, you can buy them for $10 to $30. The kettle is probably around the same price, maybe a little more. And And there you go. You don't need a big fancy machine.
Yeah, a couple of dozen dollars will get you this whole setup.
And I think the
250 grams, that's right where I'm going to stop.
Probably the biggest deterrent for people with this one is that it just takes a little bit more time than a coffee machine. But if it's part of your morning ceremony, you're involved in it. It could be kind of a fun wake-up process.
It's a really zen thing to do in the morning. It's calming. It's meditative. You're just kind of pouring water over grounds. And it's like tending your little zen garden. It's a wonderful thing to do in the morning. It's not a really complicated process. Especially a thing that I like to do is actually I'll measure the coffee that I'm using for tomorrow the night before, and I'll measure my water the night before. I'll have everything set out in a way that all I need to do in the morning is grind the coffee, put the water on it, and just kind of zone out and not think about it too hard.
What I found too is that when I make better quality coffee, I drink fewer cups because you're kind of more satisfied from having the really good flavor of one or two.
Right.
Whereas if you're making a cheapo coffee, you might not feel that. So
exactly so.
3 or 4 cups in. So that's great. Well, thank you so much for teaching us a little more about coffee and showing us about the pour over.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the show here.
Yeah, happy to help.